Welcome back for another episode of the Physics That Heals. Today we will take a short pause in our journey through the world of electromagnetic medicine, a short pit stop as you can see from my changing uniform. The main protagonists of today's episode will be you, the viewers, and your many emails to lafisicachecura@ionorisonanza.it. In this episode, we will answer at least a few of your questions. Many messages regard similar topics, so I will not answer every single one. That would be impossible here. Instead, we made a selection of the most representative ones that can help to understand the world of electromagnetic medicine. So, first question. Monica is concerned about all the information on the internet regarding the positive and negative effects of electromagnetic fields. She asks whether therapy using extremely low frequency and intensity electromagnetic fields, ELF-EMF, is safe. Thank you, Monica, for your question, which resembles many others we received. I could use various examples to demonstrate the safety and healthiness of ELF-EMF in medicine. For example, I could tell you about my children, Leonardo, who is 2 years old, and Nicolò, who is 6 months. I could talk about its use in certain contexts of high clinical risk. But I prefer to use a more down-to-earth example, indeed talking about our planet Earth. Our planet has an electromagnetic field that we call the geomagnetic field, just as you see in the picture over my shoulder. This magnetic field has a number of properties. It is fundamental for protecting us from cosmic rays, for example. But not many people know that it is also fundamental for life on Earth as we know it. Think of our sister planet Mars, which has an extremely weak magnetic field. It once had one that was similar to the Earth's, and the conditions on the Martian surface were very different. Then, after catastrophic events, it lost its magnetic field and became the wasteland revealed by NASA's rovers. It is very interesting to note that the Earth's magnetic fields interact with our personal biological systems, modulating and guiding our endocrine system and regulating what are called the circadian rhythms. You might be asking, what does all this have to do with Monica's question? Well, the terrestrial magnetic field has an average intensity of about 50 microtesla. The ELF-EMF used in medicine are lower in intensity than the Earth's magnetic field. So, if it is biologically safe to live on planet Earth, it is safe to undergo expert medical treatment with ELF-EMF. Giacomo, instead, asked what the contraindications are for the treatment with ELF-EMF. Thanks, Giacomo, for representing all the people who posed this question. The contraindications are the typical ones for all electromedical devices, people with pacemakers, pregnant women, and patients affected by epilepsy. There are, however, a few things that should be considered. As regards pacemakers, we know that these devices are screened against weak electromagnetic fields, so treatment with ELF-EMF cannot induce currents within the device. Problems could arise with the electrodes and wires that run from the device to the heart, since these could become aerials. For this aerial effect to occur, the electrode would need to have a length comparable to the length of the generated field waves, which in the case of the ELF-EMF devices that I use means a wavelength of 3,750 meters. So it is obviously impossible for this aerial effect to occur. Now, let's consider pregnancy. First, we can repeat the last answer. The fact that these electromagnetic fields are lower in intensity than the terrestrial magnetic field, and as a species, we evolved inside Earth's magnetic field. Secondly, we live in environments that are highly polluted as regards electromagnetic radiations. So the question arises, if a pregnancy can proceed in an environment highly polluted with electromagnetism in our homes and workplaces, it is possible that treatment with an electromagnetic field comparable and indeed inferior to that of the planet where we evolved could be dangerous? Finally, patients affected by epilepsy. What is the problem in this case? Hypothetically, stimulation with electromagnetic fields could induce a lowering of what is called the epileptogenic threshold in patients susceptible to epilepsy, and this is a phenomenon that could actually occur. However, if studies were conducted on ELF-EMF treatment of subjects at the risk of developing epilepsy, it might be possible to establish which frequencies the modulation of the electromagnetic field tend to rise the epileptogenic threshold or perhaps improve the effects of the pharmacological therapy. Studies and projects are on the way to verify these possibilities. More research is the only way we can find a clear response to these contraindications and perhaps in the future eliminate them completely. Among the many emails I received, I would like to share one that arrived from abroad from Catherine. Catherine wrote about her mother, an elderly lady suffering from multiple health problems, including type 2 diabetes mellitus. She suffers from diabetic ulcers, and Catherine asked whether ELF-EMF treatment might help for these ulcers and perhaps also for diabetes. Thank you, Catherine. I think the situation you are experiencing with your mother is very common here in Italy. So an answer to you is an answer for many others. We can divide the reply into two parts. First, as regards diabetic ulcers. ELF-EMF can achieve outstanding results in the treatment of bed sores, but we will deal with that in a future episode. So if you follow our series, you will learn the answer to this question. Instead, let's consider diabetes as a disease in general. Last year, in my medical facility, a small study was conducted aiming to test the impact of ELF-EMF on the general condition of patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus as a part of a master's degree project of the University of Siena. What we observed in our extremely small sample was that patients treated with ELF-EMF modulated in a particular way exhibited reduced depression and anxiety, increased awareness, and improved quality of life in general. But the really interesting thing that encourages us to continue the study, which was suspended due to the COVID pandemic, was that the glycemia level measured in the blood started to decline under treatment. So it would appear that type 2 diabetes also respond to this type of treatment on a metabolic level. After the exceptional circumstances of the present pandemic, we hope to return to this extremely interesting project. Let's move on to a question from Walter, who asks, if these treatments with electromagnetic field work, why are they not in every hospital and nobody talks about them? Walter's question is very pertinent and relevant today. This is a paradox that also amazes me, given the volume of bibliographic references available on this subject. I think it all derives from our medical training methods, in the sense that in the medical world we are used to thinking of humans in terms of biology, like machines, and the word machine makes it clear that we are still very much within the Cartesian paradigm, with humans perceived as mechanisms. In reality, living beings, not only humans, but all of life, are both biochemical and biophysical, and it is probably the biophysical level that forms the foundation upon which biochemistry can create life. Various physicists have approached biology in order to try and explain how biology and life can exist. An example is the wonderful book written by Schrödinger, What is Life? This very famous physicist tried to understand what physical phenomena underlie life itself, and he comes to very interesting conclusions. So I think the main reason why this type of medical approach is still little known is a result of the current dominant paradigm, which focuses everything on the biochemical aspect. There is another consideration to be made, that of scientific evidence. I cite many cases, but unfortunately often they are insufficient, and much more research is required in this field. Hopefully, in the future, this will happen, further reinforcing the evidence of the benefit of electromagnetic fields, making this integrated approach available for everyone. By combining ELF-EMF treatments with conventional therapy for the benefits of our patients. Sonia wrote to recount a curious experience with her cat. After a fight with a rival feline, it had a badly injured tail, which appeared lifeless. The cat didn't move its tail and showed no sign of pain when it was stimulated. Sonia had a device for ELF-EMF treatment at home, and she observed two very interesting things. The first was that during the therapy the cat remained constantly on the treatment mat. The second was that after a few weeks of treatment, her cat's tail started working normally again. Thanks to Sonia for sharing her story and opening a window onto the veterinary world. In our programs, I talk about application for electromagnetic fields on human beings, but all living beings, including our animal companions, are sensitive to this type of treatment and can benefit from it. A study comes to mind on the use of these fields to treat a horse with desmitis. The outcome was successful enough to induce the vet to publish his results. There are many other questions. Thank you again for all your email messages, which I will try to answer as soon as possible. I would like to end this episode with a quotation. In response to people who told him he was too old and should stop philosophizing, Diogenes replied, "That would be like running in a long-distance race in a stadium, seeing the finishing line and stopping instead of persisting." See you next time.